Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, the co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Daniel, we have a special guest today, an individual that supported the Ron Paul campaign in 2012, Michael Kleinman, and he, had the state annoy him by wanting him to take down a Ron Paul sign, and like so many others, failing to follow through. He did follow through and decided that they can't make him take down a sign. They had to prove it. And he refused to take down a Ron Paul sign, and this has been going on a bit. Why don't you say hello to Michael?
Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Hi. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Michael, I think what we'll do is give you a chance to sort of explain this thing, because it is fascinating. It has a lot of ramifications to it. It has a lot to do with the First Amendment. And what's great about it is you had a victory. In August, you won an appeals court. And under the circumstances, I believe you're allowed to keep a political sign up. It's amazing what we can do in this wonderful free society these days if we just fight a little bit. But why don't you just give us an update how this came about and what energized you to fight this in court?
Well, first of all, I have been a Ron Paul supporter, your supporter, since 2008, and the country has lost a very important opportunity by not having your public service anymore and not having elected you. And truthfully, if you look at the candidates that are running for president now, the most disliked politicians in the country, one of them is going to be president. Either way we look at it, it's going to be a disaster. I think we've all come to understand at this point that the two-party system is not going to provide us an answer to our problems in being free and trying to be free. And the government did more than annoy me. They came after us and cited us in court, and we were found guilty of posting a sign. There's this, the federal government holds, as you understand probably better, Congressman, holds the states, extorts them with highway funds, among other things, with money. And in order to get this money, the states have to do certain things. And one of the things they have to do, quote unquote, is beautify the highways. I think it's called the Highway Beautification Act or something like that. I'm not familiar with it. Anyway, we got into a bit of a major dispute with the city of Bee Caves, and the city of Bee Caves not being able to handle us then called in TxDOT, which is the Texas Department of Transportation, who governs all highway and signage off of roads and stuff. And there's this law that they had in Texas for a while now that says you cannot put up any political sign except 90 days before an election, and then you have to take it down after the election. And I both refused to adhere to the 90 days before, and I refused to adhere to the afterwards. I kept your sign up all through 2014, 15. And so they took us to court. They won. And we were fined, quote unquote, $3,000. Well, we appealed it. And there has, I guess maybe 6 months ago, there was a Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. It was Reed versus the state of Arizona, I believe. And it went all the way. There was a church that had signage on their property and telling people to come worship on Sunday or Monday or whatever. There was some kind of special deal they were doing, and the whatever city it was in Arizona tried to prevent them from putting these signs out. So it's not just political signs. It was just signage in general. Could have been a yard sale sign. Anyway, it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that they could not differentiate over content of sign. So the Texas Court of Appeals had to bend to the Supreme Court ruling and therefore said that all Texas state highway laws concerning signage is unconstitutional because it's all content-based.
Michael, during this period of time, were you allowed to keep your sign up, or did they forcibly take your sign down during this period?
It's my property. No, they were not going to come on my property and take my sign down. One of the things I think that I love about Texas, of course, is that we have very strong, and we believe very strongly in our property rights here. We have the right to our property, and that doesn't always work out because of the pipelines that are going through now where the government is doing eminent domain, and the fracking that's going on. Again, government usurping people's personal property rights and trying to say, quote unquote, for the greater good. We're now having the government come in and tell us that they can run a pipeline through our property and destroy water rights and mineral rights. They can dig and do whatever they want on people's property. So the government is, even in Texas, is creeping into taking and trying to run everybody's life.
Well, you know, I think your point is a perfect point, because property rights, if somebody clearly understands it, which used to be the case, is a good way to solve a lot of our problems, but there's not a lot of respect for it. And like you say, even in Texas, they're undermining those rights. But I wanted to know specifically, is your shop on a highway that receives federal funds, or were they stretching that?
I don't know the way the federal funding works for highways. I thought they just gave money. They are now claiming, the state is appealing, and they've got an interesting cast of characters here. There's, I guess, what is this? The dismantling of the Texas Highway Beautification Act is like killing a mosquito with a sledgehammer. And so this is what they have said. They don't recognize the fact that this is a First Amendment issue. They're just concerned about the Texas Highway Beautification funding, that the 300 quote unquote $1 million that they may lose because now we're not adhering to the U.S. What is this called? The Highway Beautification Act. Now, that Highway Beautification Act, in its essence, is unconstitutional based on the Reed ruling, but nobody has challenged it on a national level. We, as far as I know, are the first ones in Texas to challenge it here on a state level. Arizona, like I said, has already had that Supreme Court ruling, and so their laws have been fixed, so to speak. But now, Harris County, Dallas County, the Highway Beautification people, Lady Bird Johnson's people, they're all jumping up and down because they're all concerned that our First Amendment rights are being upheld by the courts, and their poor highway beautification money is now may be held ransom by the federal government. And they're claiming that this is onerous and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that, you know, commercial speech should be regulated, and I guess it's okay to let political speech go. And again, it's very slippery slope with the government to try to control everything.
Daniel has a question for you.
Yeah, Michael, I wonder what Texas's move is. This almost looks like something that could end up going to the U.S. Supreme Court and taking a look at the entire Federal Highway Beautification Act. Are you prepared to have your little sign on that shop be actually a case in the U.S. Supreme Court?
Yeah, it won't happen that way because our case is very clear. You know, I am about political speech. We had that Ron Paul sign up, and frankly, now we have a Bernie sign up, and it's going to stay up. You know, and I wish Congressman Paul would run again for president as a third party, but until we get somebody who actually cares about people the way he does and the way I believe Bernie Sanders does, you know, I know in my heart that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump don't give a hoot about people. I know in my heart that Congressman Paul does. I know in my heart that Bernie Sanders does. So to answer your question, there is a real legal issue as to whether governments can regulate commercial speech. I mean, that's an interesting question. But there is no question that government cannot regulate political speech. We have First Amendment rights.
Well,
And so my case, the Ron Paul sign will not go to the Supreme Court. The state of Texas admits that they were wrong in trying to regulate. They've said it in court. What they're saying now is that, well, because the Court of Appeals said all the signage laws are unconstitutional, they're saying, okay, the political ones are unconstitutional, but what about the commercial ones? And so that case may at some point go somewhere. I predict that the Texas legislature is going to, quote unquote, fix things by then coming up with a situation where political speech is okay, but commercial speech is heavily regulated. And Harris County and Dallas County and the highway beautification people, and by the way, the big billboard cartels, because they don't want this thrown open to the little guys either. They want to control. They've cut a deal with TxDOT already, all these years about billboards. So you've got all these big corporate interests and the government interests all lined up now, appealing to the appeals court for a rehearing on our case.
Well,
and they want the appeals court unconstitutionally to legislate. They're asking the appeals court to say, okay, the political speech is cool, but the commercial speech can still be regulated.
Yeah, and Michael, I think you're correct on concentrating on this, and maybe that's all we can do right now. But the whole picture of commercial versus social speech and political speech is an important issue, because obviously the founders of this country didn't think there was such a thing as commercial speech versus political speech. It was just free speech. But I see this, it is a very important issue, and it's being divided, and maybe they won't resolve the whole thing. But if they can just get a benefit from this, which you have already gotten, in the political speech. But I wanted to ask you about the people that live nearby you in your own town in Bee Cave. Have they given you support, or are they the ones that are trying to crack down on you?
The government, you mean, or the people?
No, the people, your neighbors, your friends.
No, the people. That's how we exist. We're a retail, establishment. We have 18 stores throughout Central Texas. The people love us.
No, I'm talking about in your hometown, even in Bee Cave.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because your city was challenging you as well.
Yeah. That the governments don't like us, but the people like us. We kind of like it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because they do have a complaint line that
Right.
the people can call on other businesses. So what's next for you, Michael? Well, you say you're continuing your political speech. What's your next move?
In terms of this case, we'll wait to see where it goes. But this case is pretty much done. TxDOT is a big government bully, and they don't like losing. They've never lost, in fact. But now they've lost, and they're not willing to accept it. So they're going to try to have a rehearing, and then my prediction is it's going to go to the Texas Supreme Court. And like I say, what their tact right now is to try to get the court to legislate. Now, if the court does that, that's unconstitutional, and we'll certainly challenge that. And frankly, my take on it right now is that if somebody has even a commercial speech, you shouldn't be encumbered.
Right.
It's a very schizophrenic government right now, because they have Citizens United, which says that corporations and businesses are people and have the same rights. Well, if we have the same rights, then we have the same rights to advertise and be commercial about it. So it is an intellectual issue of sorts. But again, I'd rather err on the side of freedom than err on the side of regulation.
That's for sure. Michael, we have to go, but I want to thank you very much for coming on, but also thank you for the support you've given the Ron Paul campaign, and also for your tenacious ability to pursue this, and have a victory. We're delighted with that, because people get despondent and they think it's not worth fighting, and it is a tough battle, but we were delighted to read this story, and I thank you for coming on our program today.
Oh, it was a pleasure anytime, and seriously, you've given so much to the state of Texas already and to this country, so I hesitate to ask you to give more, but we really need you and people like you and to continue to be involved in changing things here, because we've gotten so far away from our Constitution now, and it only continues to creep on. I mean, my real concern, frankly, is the end of Prohibition. You know, the reality is that Prohibition has never worked in any sense of the history, you know, of the world. Yet we continue to waste money and destroy people's lives over consensual acts of adults.
Yeah, I agree with you that we need to get rid of the drug war for total.
That is where my next step really is for people to understand Prohibition doesn't work, and it's costing us millions, and it's tearing families apart.
No doubt about it. And once again, Michael, thank you very much for being with us, and I want to thank the audience today for being with us today on the Liberty Report. And please come back soon.